Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you.
Hello, and welcome to the channel. Today on Frontline Rejects, we're going to be mounting an optic to our Bagara B14 HMR. The optic we'll be mounting is a Leupold VX5 HD with a 30mm tube. As you can see, we currently have it sitting in the rings loosely on the rifle. The first thing we need to do is make sure that the scope is situated at the correct point within the rings. The first thing that we need to do is figure out where our scope is going to be set within the rings. To do this, we need to figure out what our eye box is. An eye box is basically the distance from the glass that your eye has a perfect sight picture within the scope, where it's not too blurry around the outside, but where you have a perfect image of the entire reticle. To do this, we need to get in whatever position that we plan on shooting the rifle the most. If we're going to primarily fire the rifle from the prone, it's best to get in the prone when setting the eye box. If we're going to be seated, then do it seated. The point is to have the rifle set up for whatever position we plan to use it in primarily. Once we've gotten into whatever position we need to be in with the rifle, then we'll go ahead and get a perfectly comfortable cheek weld. We don't want to be stressing ourselves by pushing ourselves too far forward or too far back. We want to take a comfortable position on the stock and then move the scope further forward or rearward to the back until we get that perfect, clear, crisp image. Once we've done that, we know where our scope will be set within the rings. Once our scope is set, we want to loosely attach the top halves of the scope rings. Now that we have the top halves of our scope rings attached loosely, we can go ahead and level the scope. The method that we'll be using today will simply require us to take a piece of metal, such as this feeler gauge, that has two parallel edges and can fit beneath the scope and above the Picatinny base. Now we'll set this in here lightly. This only works if you have a scope with a flat base. We want the back edge of the gauge to come into contact evenly across the Picatinny rail. And we want the front edge to come in contact evenly with the base of the scope. This will allow the scope to be perfectly parallel to the Picatinny base. In theory, the scope crosshairs will then be leveled to the rifle. After we've gotten the optic to a point that we're comfortable with, we'll go ahead and back these screws out one at a time, and we'll add a tiny amount of blue Loctite. We'll then replace the screw and snug it up. We'll complete this in a crisscross pattern for the rest of the screws. Now that we have everything Loctited in place, we can go ahead and clean away any extra Loctite. And then we can torque this to spec. Always follow your manufacturer recommended torque spec. For these rings, our spec is going to be 18 inch-pounds. And then torque in a crisscross pattern. After you've completed torquing the screws, go ahead and take one last visual check inside your reticle to make sure everything seems lined up properly, and then you're done. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed today's content, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and check out some of our other videos.